But every time I drew something funny I saw, I realized that people giggle not at the thought of the sight, but the recollection of it. What I got from that observation is not only the funkiest dance move to date that I own, also my most popular illustration, that's how to tie a lungi. There's a wealth of ideas, solutions, and smiles just waiting to be looked at, if only you'd notice. When I first moved to India, I was super excited to work with a company and do what I've always wanted to do, and that is draw. Working with a company was fantastic, and a brand name, because there was always a clear direction and a brief at hand. But it was when I started working independently a year and a half later that I started questioning whether I would ever have any ideas, or whether it will stop completely, and whether I'd have something to always say in pictures, then that means, or something to draw about. I've lived with this insecurity since I started posting illustrations daily online. But it was that fear that taught me one of my dearest lessons that can be summarized in just one word, one simple word, and that is noticing. Everything seemed like a Bollywood movie, as you can imagine. It's not like you can avoid seeing the cow that decides to take a nap in the middle of the road, or the chai wala who scratches his armpit excessively before he serves you that cup of tea that you've been looking forward to the whole evening. Though these were new sights to me, these were everyday sights for an average Indian. But every time I drew something funny I saw, I realized that people giggle not at the thought of the sight, but the recollection of it. I find it intriguing that something that's part and parcel of an everyday life can become funny when just pointed out. Now, 2 years later, I've stopped looking at things that happen daily, but I've not stopped noticing. Though noticing plainly means observing, I feel like it's more like an insight that leads to other thoughts. So suddenly, the traffic jam in front of you isn't just a time-consuming annoyance, but a clump of many windows with many people's reaction to it. So the guy in front of you isn't just that elbowed, who we call newbies on the road, but the guy who sings superbly out of tune to loud, jarring Hindi music. And the taxi driver beside you doesn't sadly comprehend the value of a tissue. And though these windows prove as great entertainment while you're driving, they also prove as places where I sometimes get my next idea for an illustration from. I was on my way back to the airport, oddly enough, from Cochin, and I see this bloke on the road do this sort of a dance, and suddenly, magically, his long lungi becomes a short one. And I was like, what just happened? And I made a note in my diary, and I decided to ask someone from the area about it. What I got from that observation is not only the funkiest dance move to date that I own, also my most popular illustration, that's how to tie a lungi. Long and short version. I was at a friend's place, and I overheard my friend tell her sister that she should not eat the crusts of bread because they'll make her hair fizzy. I asked her, where did she hear such a ridiculous statement? And she told me that her mom told her that her mom told her. So I started this series called Old Wives' Tales, as you can imagine, is just illustrated versions of superstitions that I've heard over time. What started out as 10 to 20 illustrations, I didn't think it would honestly go further than that. But it grew to over 300 and counting when I just provided the opportunity for people to contribute their versions of old wives' tales that they've heard. As you know, India is the language of stories. And it's funny how noticing is probably how these tales even get started. For example, in this case, a guy with rather large nostrils was probably doing his business. An old auntie passed by, takes a look, puts two and two together, and the next thing you know, she's passing on her newly acquired wisdom. Noticing is a constant idea proposer, and you absolutely don't have to be an illustrator, obviously, to start looking for things to notice. So on your way back home, you can notice how the time the food takes to arrive is inversely proportionate to how hungry you are, and how the first few bags that come onto a slide seem to never belong to anyone. There's a wealth of ideas, solutions, and smiles just waiting to be looked at, if only you'd notice. Thank you.